Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome to the romantic Vaughn Manor, where it's the relationship tag today. I'm doing the relationship tag, which was created by books, songs, and other magic. So it's Tag Thursday today. It's Tag Thursday. Anyway, the relationship tag, a tag all about relationships. Okay, let's do this exciting tag. I've got my glowy tablet here. Okay, number one. What book or books have you had the longest? I've had a few books for a long time, but the book I'm thinking of, it's kind of a cheat because it was my stepfather's book, but I stole it. So, and that would be this one. This is a book about EC Comics, the EC Horror Library of the 1950s. The EC Horror Library from the 1950s. This is a great big, somewhat beat up comic book that reprints some great EC horror stories from the 1950s. This is a great book. And my stepfather was a big fan of the old EC horror comic books. And so he had this book. And as a very small child, I read these terrifying horror stories in this book. And they're part of what warped my mind. I mean, I was just a little kid when I read some of these horror stories. It's great stuff, and I don't even remember how young I was when I started looking at this book. But yeah, it was my stepfather's, and I kind of stole it. And eventually inherited it. So yeah, the EC Comics Horror Library from the 1950s. So this is a cool book. And I'm glad I still have that. Okay. I have other books that I've had a long time. I'm going to be showing you one later on in this tag, actually. Number two. What authors have you had a close relationship with that you're still reading today? Three of them come to mind. There are probably a lot of them, actually. One of the first authors I ever read that I developed a relationship with and that I am still reading today would be H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells. The Time Machine is one of the books that I read when I was just a kid. And I love H.G. Wells and H.G. Wells books, mostly his science fiction-y books. And War of the Worlds is one of those. So this is a collection of all of those books that I love from H.G. Wells. So yeah, H.G. Wells. I've been reading H.G. Wells forever. And also, of course, when I was a young teenager, I started reading Edgar Rice Burroughs. Edgar Rice Burroughs, the author of Tarzan of the Apes and A Princess of Mars. Love Edgar Rice Burroughs. In fact, next year I'm going to be reading every single Edgar Rice Burroughs book in a row. It's going to be an exciting project, and that's a lot of books. But it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, to revisit all of the books that Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote, because I read them all when I was a young person, and so it'll be fun to read them as a senior citizen. So yeah, Edgar Rice Burroughs, and of course, if you watch my channel at all, you know Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard, I've been reading Robert E. Howard forever as well. Love Robert E. Howard, and I will continue to read Robert E. Howard for my whole life, I am sure. It's a long-term relationship with Robert E. Howard. So, yeah. Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan, in case you didn't know. All right, so that was that question. Let's see, what's number three? What new author did you start a relationship with recently? I don't think I've read any new authors, as in authors that are new. But I have started reading this year an author that I had never read before. And I'm on the third book by this author, and that would be the psychopathic mass murderer John Christopher, and this is his book, The Ragged Edge. I read The Death of Grass, and then The Long Winter, or The World in Winter, and this is The Ragged Edge, which I'm reading now from John Christopher for my science fiction book project and for New Worlds November. And John Christopher likes to destroy the world. He destroys the world like all the time. This is the third book I've read in which he destroys society. So he just destroys it in different ways. You know, he killed off all the grass in The Death of Grass and a bunch of wheat, and everybody was starving to death in The Death of Grass. And then he created a new ice age, and now earthquakes and volcanoes are destroying the world in The Ragged Edge. So he loves to destroy the world, John Christopher. So yeah, it's a destructive relationship, actually. Okay, that was that question. Name a book that you would say influenced your formative years. Okay, this is the other book I've had for a long, long time. Much like the EC Comics book that warped me forever, of course I have to mention Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is the very edition that I first read Dracula in, and it's also the first adult novel that I read as a kid. Dracula, it sent me down a bizarre path of reading horror, science fiction, and fantasy. Love Dracula. It's very rereadable, Dracula. I love this book. And I love this edition of it, and I love this cover because this is how I first read Dracula, was this old Signet classic. Again, it wasn't my book, I stole it. It was my mother's book, and I stole it from her. I was always stealing books. I was a thief. And so, yeah, Dracula. Long-term relationship with Dracula. All right. Number 5. Name a two-character relationship in a book that is central to the narrative of the book. Okay. That would be, of course, and this is no surprise, Power Man and Iron Fist. Power Man and Iron Fist. They were just lone heroes. Lone and lonely heroes when they were apart. But then they found each other, Power Man and Iron Fist did. And then they fought crime together, and they were complete. Yes, Power Man and Iron Fist. Their close relationship is what this series of comic books was all about. Power Man and Iron Fist. There you go. Beautiful, beautiful relationship. Power Man and Iron Fist. So, there you are. Let's see. Number 6. Name a book that is a great depiction of family. So many books I can pick because there's so many great depictions of family in literature. But let's go with a book that has actually more than one family in it, and family is very important in this book, and that would be Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, of course. Family is very important in Game of Thrones. Some of the members of certain families are really close, if you know what I mean. So, Game of Thrones, there you go. It's a beautiful book about family. So, there you are. Game of Thrones. What are we on now? Name a book that features a love or obsession with a different art form as a part of its story. Okay, hold on. Name a book that features a love or obsession with a different art form. Okay, a love or obsession with an art form, I suppose. Now, I couldn't think off the top of my head of a whole book because it's really early. It's like, what time is it at this very moment? It is 5:10. It's 5:10 a.m. on Tuesday. And my brain isn't functioning all that well, but I did think of Pickman's Model. Pickman's Model, which is a story. It's a short story which you could find in a lot of H.P. Lovecraft collections, including the complete fiction. Pickman is a Robert Upman Pickman, I think is his name. Am I getting the name right? I think I must be. So Pickman is obsessed with his art. And a friend of his goes over to his creepy, creepy house and sees that he paints pictures of ghouls, terrible, creepy ghouls who like to eat people. And they're very terrifying pictures. And yeah, Richard Upman Pickman is obsessed with his painting. So sure, that's what I'm going to pick because I can't think of anything else. H.P. Lovecraft, Pickman's Model. That's a great story, actually. They did a version of this in the television show for Netflix, Cabinet of Curiosities, which I saw recently. That's a pretty good show. Pickman's Model episode, but the story is really good. The story is really good. It's a good story. Pickman's Model. That's all I could think of. It's early. Let's see. Tag some people. Okay, I'm going to tag 2 people in a beautiful relationship. Miles of inhospitable country cannot separate these 2 friends, which would be Shawn D Standfast and Book Time with Elvis. They have a lovely friendship, and I will tag both of them to do the relationship tag by books, songs, and other magic. I guess that's all I have to say for this morning. Wasn't that a lovely tag? Of course it was. I will catch you next time.